There's not much to spoil with Oppenheimer because it's a historical biopic. I mean, you can spoil the movie by reading the Wikipedia page for Oppenheimer. It's not it's not a plot twist. Um, it happened as it happened, presumably with some artistic license. Hey, it was great. I'm not a big Christopher Nolan fan. Like, really, I've complained about him on stream before. Admittedly, I haven't seen Tenet, and I haven't seen Interstellar, and I know a lot of people, but I didn't care that much for Inception and the Batman movies. And there's a lot of stuff. It's just something about him that I find off-putting and generally annoying. But you know what? Credit where credit's due. Okay, I really, really liked Oppenheimer. I did. I liked it a lot. It was like 3 hours, and I wasn't bored, even though the entire movie was just old white guys in office rooms talking to each other as time advanced, and we just kind of get a slice of the the 30s through the 50s from the perspective of one guy with the big hat. It was good. Obviously, I'm not here to talk about like the movie, right? I'm here to talk about how the movie is actually about Marxism. No, so okay, so for those of you who don't know or haven't seen the movie or don't care or whatever, Oppenheimer is the guy who made the atomic bomb. He led the Manhattan Project. Atomic bombs morally, they're kind of spicy as weapons go. After making the bomb, he was notable primarily for protesting against their use, essentially arguing for international cooperation, saying that he didn't think there was any way to reasonably manage the threat that they posed without securing sort of collaboration on how much uranium could be mined, processed. Atomic energy has to be regulated, and he was unsuccessful. Nobody, people listened to him, but it didn't work, did it? Remember the Cold War? Both sides built thousands of nukes. First the atomic bombs, and then the hydrogen bombs, which were larger, and the movie talks about that as well. He didn't like those because hydrogen bombs, the explosion radius is so large that they can't actually be used as tactical nuclear weapons the way that the atomic bomb conceivably could. So we armed up and nobody listened to him. And man, he would have died. He died early from lung cancer. He would have died right around the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Would have been before or after. Hold on. Cuban Missile Crisis. No, oh no, it would have been after. He died in 67, I think. So yeah, he would have lived to see the absolute apex of his creation being used to terrorize the world. The Cuban Missile Crisis was such a stressful time that there was a spike in suicides around the world. I mean, as people listened to what was happening on the TV and radio, and they heard about the increasing threat in the naval blockade, the two naval forces confronting each other, a lot of people just killed themselves because they figured, well, world's over, basically. This is it. But he lived through that, and then he died of lung cancer. Oh, throat cancer. Sorry, throat cancer. Because he smoked. He was always smoking in the movie. That's the prelude to that. He dies from that. Don't smoke. It's not good for you, folks. Don't vape either. Okay? So anyway, I said this movie is Marxist. It's not. I was lying. However, again, if you'd watch the movie, Oppenheimer had a lot of communist associates. He was Jewish and an academic. And associated with a lot of flighty types that the FBI wouldn't care too much for come, say 1945 especially, but generally just through American history. We don't like communists that much, and he was viewed with suspicion but made the project leader anyway. And the central conflict of the movie, of which there are a few, but the main one I want to talk about is Oppenheimer's liberalism. Okay, let me set the stage for you. It's Oppenheimer, not Oppenheimer. I'm going to switch back and forth between them with reckless abandon. Talbot K18. Oppenheimer, I'll do it for you. Oppenheimer, okay? Not a proper communist. Sympathetic to communist ideas, aren't we all? As every good American should be. But he knew a lot of communists. Fucked a lot of communists. Had a great time. Now, as it turns out, if you can believe this, when you are inducted into a top secret U.S. government military project during wartime, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain positive connections with your communist friends. It's just not something you have much time for anymore. He was discouraged from maintaining contact with previous communist associates for reasons that should be pretty obvious. Don't want secrets leaking out about what you're doing down there at Los Alamos, building a bomb. As the movie progresses, Oppenheimer grows increasingly concerned about what his weapon will be used for. Now, to be clear, okay? To be clear, discussions on the construction of an atomic bomb took place in the context of Nazi Germany. Oppenheimer was a Jew, and he knew what was going on over there. So he thought, oh, well, as the war increases, they're going to build a bomb too. And in fact, they were already working on it when he was made keen on the project. So from his perspective, he thought somebody is going to build this bomb. The construction of an atomic bomb is an inevitable consequence of the scientific discoveries made by Einstein. Now that we get what's going on at a atomic level, like this technology naturally suggests itself, somebody will build it, and that it better not be the Nazis. Now, personally, I'm sympathetic to that logic, you know? I don't like the idea of an atomic bomb in the hands of literally Hitler. I don't like that. So when he set out to begin building the bomb at Los Alamos, Manhattan Project, he was doing so under the assumption that he was in a race against time, against the German government, where their atomic bomb project was, thankfully for the United States of America, not being treated with the same respect and financial support as the American project. Interestingly, I didn't know whether they'd bring it up directly, but I guess I should have assumed they would. Heisenberg, not the one from Breaking Bad, the real one, who was leading the atomic project in Germany, was Jewish, and Hitler thought that quantum mechanics was a Jewish science because Albert Einstein, who was Jewish, was, kind of its, right. So anti-Semitism almost certainly denied the Nazi government the ability to make atomic weapons faster than us, especially since apparently they got started on the project earlier. There were a lot of really smart German Jewish scientists in Germany at the time, and a lot of them scattered because of the increasing specter of anti-Semitism. So, there you go. When Oppenheimer was working on the bomb, he wanted to beat his old pal Heisenberg. He wanted to drop it on Berlin. He wanted to vaporize Hitler. But of course, Hitler killed himself and Germany surrendered before the bomb was finished. And the bombs ended up getting dropped on Japan. Now, to be clear, morally speaking, the construction of a nuclear weapon, the world's first, in a vacuum, I think is a moral wrong for reasons that I hope will be obvious to everyone. In the context of racing to that technology against the Nazis, I think now it's quite a bit more defensible. Again, you really don't want Hitler to have atomic weapons. That's just a bad strategy. People have tried that opener and it doesn't work. It's not how you win. But after the defeat of Germany, and especially with the dropping of the bombs on Japan, Oppenheimer was a lot less enthusiastic because now it wasn't so much a race and it was more he had, helped facilitate the creation of a global superpower that had access to a weapon nobody else did, and it proliferated sufficiently the use of the weapon could end the world. Right? Right. I'm not even going to touch on like the morals of dropping the bomb on the on the Japanese, largely because there's a Sean video for that, and also because it's not actually relevant to what I'm trying to get at here. What I'm trying to get at here is that Oppenheimer took a big dub and then a big L, made the bomb, sure, but utterly failed to in any way contain its use or proliferation after making the bomb. Right? I mean, he spent how many years working on Project Manhattan? 4? Maybe 5? How many years of his life did he spend trying to fight against the overproliferation of the nuclear weapons? About 20? Three. It was three. So 3 years making the bomb, and over 2 decades trying to keep it in, and he didn't succeed. That's what the movie ends on, by the way. See, again, if you've watched the movie, then you know this, okay? But if you haven't, there were some people during the testing process for the atomic bomb who thought that the nuclear chain reaction that would be initiated in the core of uranium or plutonium would be severe enough to continue to propagate even in a less dense non-uranium or plutonium environment. In other words, that the chain reaction of splitting the atom would continue into the atmosphere, therefore lighting Earth's atmosphere ablaze and destroying the entire planet. Um, it was one look at the math of the bomb. Obviously, it didn't end up happening, and they didn't really think it was going to happen. It wasn't like the likely outcome. But it was a thought. And the movie ends with Oppenheimer talking to Einstein, and Oppenheimer's like, "Do you remember that one time I showed you the calculations which suggested that it might, light the atmosphere and destroy the world? That a chain reaction might have been set forward that would end everything?" And Einstein's like, "Yes, I remember that." And Oppenheimer's like, "I think we did." And then the final shot of the movie is him sort of envisioning the end of the world through nuclear Armageddon. Very harrowing at the end, I gotta say. But it shows kind of like, I mean, the movie ends on a failure from him. And I think it brings forward interesting points about his identity as a communist sympathizer and the role of the U.S. government in the propagation of nuclear weaponry as a general strategy. The U.S. government is portrayed in film as being like somewhere in between recklessly indifferent and actively malicious when it comes to the use of nuclear weapons. Between conversations that he's had with military officials, with President Truman, it's made pretty clear that he takes this very seriously, and a lot of other people kind of don't. That is sort of his big failure. And I think there's a lesson to be learned here, or at least something to be said about collaborationism for one, and also kind of like trying to put the genie back in the bottle in a way. If from a purely Marxist perspective, the total proliferation of nuclear weapons was a near inevitable consequence of the discovery of their existence. I don't think that if Oppenheimer had just like sabotaged the whole project, I don't think that would have fixed anything. Like, the Nazis still would have lost to the Soviets, and the Soviets would have had their atomic weapon eventually anyway. So outcomes-wise, I don't know how much things would have really changed. Maybe that's kind of the point, that nothing mattered. That sounds kind of like blasé, and obviously Oppenheimer was a genius and his work was valued and blah, blah, but in like a big materialist sense, like that nothing mattered, essentially. Einstein straight out said that we should abandon our loyalty to the government. Yeah, he did. Well, Einstein was a socialist. And very much like Oppenheimer, was considered to be a person of great interest due to his mind, but his political views were not thought of favorably by plenty of people working in government and in government security. But I don't know if it would have changed anything. Maybe that is the point. That even there, yeah, I think it is, because near the end of the movie, there's a bit of a montage. It's after the war. Oppenheimer's a global celebrity, and he's receiving awards for all the stuff that he's done. And there's a line that goes something like, "And remember, when they bring you up on stage to hand you an award, know that they're not doing it for you; they're doing it for themselves." Like, Oppenheimer had already served his purpose. He was a one-use tool, and after that, any lauding or celebration of his genius had nothing to do with him, really, but had to do with the respective careers of the people who benefited from being next to him. Yeah, really, maybe the whole lesson from this is that is historical materialism, a kind of inevitability of design, which is interesting. I'm not really sure if there's any normative lesson to take from that. I mean, it's a depressing movie. It ends how it ends for a reason. I just think, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it's worth a watch. I enjoyed it very much. Yeah, archived even when he was alive. Vosh Heisenberg wasn't Jewish. He was called a white Jew. He's referred to, I think. Um, okay, well, to be fair, we're talking about Jewish by Nazi determination here, and their standards are a little bit, let's say, tenuous. But yeah. Um, hmm. How do you feel about Strauss in the movie? The whole framing of the movie is that a colleague of Oppenheimer has been sabotaging him in the public light by subjecting him to an incredibly rigorous, essentially trial, but not really, to drag out all of his secrets and fears and mistakes throughout his whole life. I mean, Strauss comes across as like a lunatic in the movie, so without knowing much about his actual in real life counterpart, I can't really say. Have you seen the tweets wishing for a Japanese perspective of the movie? These were said by people who didn't actually watch the movie. It's a very stupid thing to say. The idea that the movie glorifies the bomb is moronic. It absolutely does not. And the idea that the movie would have in any way benefited from cutting away from what's otherwise like a pretty continuous 3 hours of a framing device where Oppenheimer is recanting his life and trial, to like 10 minutes to spend in Hiroshima, so we could see like a Japanese family, yeah, I don't know, playing around in the flowers before getting atomized. I don't know how that would have improved the experience at all. I mean, Oppenheimer is pretty clearly racked with guilt, like the whole time. I don't know what that would have added. I have no clue at all. Um, yeah. Well, but the sex scenes were vital, of course. I think it's really like indicative of how sexless movies are these days that people are even paying attention to the sex scenes. There are like the sex scenes in the movie. There are like 2 or maybe 3, and they're as titillating and severe as something you would have seen back in the 1980s. But like people talk about it because like everyone's used to seeing Marvel movies, so they're like, "Oh my god, you can show tits in films? You can actually." You can show a woman's butt as she's laying on a guy's lap and like fucking. Yes, you can. They've been doing that for decades. It's not new. Watch anything but Marvel movies. Sorry, it's just people keep talking about the sex scenes. They're not. I'm glad you like them. Well, anyway, really depressing movie. Like, if you want a sex scene, or if you want nudity, go. You can see Scarlett Johansson naked in Asteroid City. You know that, right? There's a scene where she drops her towel, and you can see her fully nude in the mirror, like bush and everything. Scarlett Johansson. Like, nobody talks about that, except I saw one tweet about it on Twitter, because it's like it's a quirky movie. So yeah, it's actually her. It's not a body double. What do you think of him saying the line in the middle of sex? He said so. He says, "I have become Death Destroyer of Worlds because a woman who is riding him procures a book in Sanskrit and asks him to read a given passage while she's riding him." And then he said that. I thought it was a bit corny personally, but I feel like it was maybe done deliberately because it was done very early on in the film, and I feel like it was done to keep people from spending the entire movie going, "Say the line, say the line." So by kind of like popping that bubble early, you get people to focus on anything else. I think in that respect that's that's a bit sensible. Wait, actually, yeah, yes, I'm not. That's not a joke. Um, 3 hours is so long though. I didn't feel the length of the movie. It's a very good movie. I would also say that it's probably the most effective piece of anti-nuclear proliferation propaganda that I've seen in a long time. If you want to convince somebody how dangerous it is to treat nuclear weapons flippantly, that is a good movie to watch because it really makes you think about that. Like, because that's kind of the whole point. What do you think of people who say it should have been played by an actual Jew? I don't care. You like we can do this infinitely for historical biopics. Should have actually been a Jew. Should have actually been 5'7". Should have actually had a 6.2 inch penis. With mild girth. Like I don't. I don't really care. It's called acting. Yeah. This isn't like a person wearing blackface to play a black role when they're white or whatever. Jewishness is not written on the skin or the face or the appearance, and it's not like he was a practicing Jew or had a kippah on or anything like that. So yeah, no, he doesn't act Jewish at all. The only time his Jewishness is even brought up is when people are like, "Yeah, the Nazis probably would have killed you," which, yeah, they would have. That's true. He's also a dead ringer, by the way. Um, Seriously, like we've all seen this picture because it's been marketed to hell and back, and he looks very harrowing, and so on. But this is the actual man, and it's like Jesus Christ. Like I know the angle is different, but like what the fuck? Yeah, that's really close. Yeah, given a appearance being that proximate. Oh yeah, I it even took me a bit to recognize Robert Downey Jr.'s character as well. I think I saw a bit of an interview or some anecdote where Robert was saying that he really wanted to do this movie because he'd spent so long in the Marvel films that he'd forgotten what acting was. Because Robert Downey Jr. actually is a very good actor, and he's been doing like CGI Iron Man stand here in the middle of the green room and like do a couple of lines into the box kind of shit for like over a decade, right? Yeah, 2008 was the first Iron Man, so we would start filming in 2006. Then that goes all the way up to when he dies, and yeah, yeah, yeah. They did a great job with him. Look at this. Look at how distinguished he looks. God bless him and every other actor looking to get a breakout from the Marvel trap. Nope, I will not subs and soda. It's a good way to lose my channel. Bosh. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Look at that. That's the actor on the left and Oppenheimer on the right. That's pretty crazy. This is before any makeup or adjustment too. This is just their faces. The cast was stacked. The cast was excellent. I really, really enjoyed it. Would you see it again in IMAX? No, I don't care that much about having the sound boom at me. Not to mention, even in the relatively small theater that I saw it in, the sound from the atomic bomb exploding during the Trinity test was enough to like shake my bones. I feel like if I was in an IMAX theater, like that, I would just deafen me instantly. Um, and I do like being able to hear. Oh, Christopher Nolan also bragged about how the movie is basically no CGI, how the atomic bomb test didn't involve any CGI. I really like the approach they took towards it because, from your perspective in the audience, you got the same treat to see it that everyone else did. You get brief, fleeting, partial shots of the Trinity bomb test, and just a few seconds of a lingering shot of the full thing, and it's silent for 20 seconds before the sound wave hits you, the shock wave. You don't see anything of Nagasaki and Hiroshima because, again, you're Oppenheimer. You saw what he saw. And it was a big boom. That's what it was. It was pretty loud, be down, that's for sure. Yeah. The foot stomping, though? The foot stomping was very loud. Are the conservatives going to hate this movie even when it's so popular? Maybe when the hype died down? I don't know if it's going to be much of a culture war thing because it's pretty difficult as a conservative to frame the movie in like a culture war anti-woke way when it's literally a historical biopic. But obviously the context of the movie, the themes, and the story that's told are not ones that align with a conservative worldview. Yes, I have seen the latest conspiracy theories of people saying that atomic bombs aren't actually real because there's no other way we ever could have gotten a camera to view inside the window of one of those test houses they built out in Nevada. Yes, I've seen that. I'm not even getting into that right now. Yes, I'm fully aware. And Nolan support. Yes, Christopher Nolan supports the strikes. All right, that's enough. I have far more to say about Barbie. So obviously, I'm not really, or at least I don't consider myself to be the target audience of a movie called Barbie. I wasn't really interested in it when they announced that it was going to be a movie, though their marketing team did a phenomenal job. And obviously, the whole Barbenheimer thing, became mimetically interesting. But as it got closer and closer to release date, there was some stuff that I was seeing about the Barbie movie, people talking about it, actors, whatever, that gave me the impression that they weren't going to be doing some like bargain basement, like just toy cash in nonsense. Keep in mind, okay, the historical record for quality of movies that are toy tie-ins, not great. The Lego movie, that's a positive example, okay? The Lego movie is a good example. Generally speaking, this is not like a breakout field when it comes to high-quality cinema. This tends not to be Kino. So I wasn't, like, super enthused the whole way through, but then people said they saw Barbie and really liked it, and I saw it the other day. Guys, it was actually really good. It was really good. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it was more surprising to me than Oppenheimer because I knew Oppenheimer would be at least good, given the subject material. I had no real expectations for Barbie, and Barbie ended up being, I think pretty great, to be honest with you. In both the construction of the film, the creativity, the acting, and also the political themes. Which, by the way, great of them to just make a Marxist movie. That was fantastic of them. I really, really, really appreciated that. The success of this film is going to be kind of a touch point moment for Hollywood for a while to come because it's the highest grossing movie ever with a female director by a huge margin. In terms of dual box office opening weekend between it and Oppenheimer, I think it's like one of the highest ever, like in the top 5 or 6 ever. It's already gotten 400 million. It's doing extremely well, Barbie, and Oppenheimer's doing well as well, but mostly it's Barbie. So why is everyone seeing Barbie? Okay. So I'm going to spoil everything, but I'm going to talk about what I find interesting, all right? So a lot of what people have been talking about, at least in my circle of the woods, is Ryan Gosling, right? Because Ryan Gosling is Ken, and he's Ryan Gosling, and Ryan is a great actor, and he's great, and he's great, and he's very good. And boy, is he muscular. Whew! I mean, he's always been beefy, right? But like, the jean vest is underselling it here. Look at his arm. Look at his left arm from right here. He's very large in the movie, which is funny. I guess they were trying to like get him as close as possible to like the Ken doll natural musculature, which is which is great. And I think they succeeded in that respect. He does look toy-like in how in how muscular he is. And so does she, right? It's Margot Robbie, right? It's not Margot, like the Elden Ring boss. It's Margot Robbie, right? Correct? Fuck, she's beautiful. Yes, so she's obviously gorgeous, and she looks like a Barbie doll. Like, this is pretty. Yes, that's a straightforward. So in terms of aesthetics, they've got that going on. Aesthetically and tonally, I would say the movie was virtually perfect, and I actually mean that. And I'm generally very critical too. So, the Barbie Dreamland, which is like the setting of the most of the film, which is like the magical kind of alternate reality kind of dreamland area where Barbies live in their Barbie paradise. Like it's deliberately abstracted and aesthetized in a way that is incomprehensible. Like they have a pool, but the pool is hard plastic, right? They have breakfast, but the breakfast consists of an empty cup and like a plastic little like toast with egg because it's not real. It's Barbie land and Barbie's plastic. Life in plastic is fantastic. That's the line. So it's abstracted. I think at one point the narrator says, and Barbie doesn't walk from place to place. She's simply placed wherever she needs to be to continue the scene. Because like if you're like playing with dolls as like a little kid, you don't have Barbie like walk from the one set to the other. You just put them in one. So she just gets flown from one place to another with like sparkles behind her. It was really good. There were multiple scenes when a person took a hit, and rather than like reacting the way a person should, they fly backwards in like this wire fu style. Like it was funny. It was funny. The whole thing, the whole design of Barbie Land, the aesthetic, everything that they went for. I think they nailed it. Like, no, it was genuinely delightful. And I don't care for this pastel like Barbie shit on its own, but I love artistry. And to bring that alive in the way they did, to make it that funny and that interesting, without deviating from the. I'll put it this way, okay? I think that a worse director with a worse idea would have tried to take all the Barbie aesthetic and like hyper realize it. You know what I mean? Where they would have had like pink water coming out of the shower when she takes the shower. You know what happens to Margot Robbie when she takes a shower? Nothing. She turns a plastic dial, stands underneath the shower head, nothing happens, and then she just does like this, and then she's clean. That's Kino. That's perfect right there. A hack director would have made pink water come out or like sparkles or something, but nothing happens because that's what happens in a Barbie playset, right? Nothing, because the shower doesn't work, you stupid bitch. You haven't connected it to plumbing, you fucking idiot. Great. I loved it. The plot of the movie involves Barbie going to the real world, and the real world is still a cartoon. As in, people will do like Hanna-Barbera cartoon hijinks chasing each other, like there's goofy noises. It's not like hyper real in the real world either. The whole thing is still yeah. Oh, Tempest, I'm going to talk about that. So there's an interesting tone shift that happens when they move to the real world as well that carries forward this like really interesting aesthetic duality they're going for, which is that Barbie Land is, of course, plastic and perfect and superficial and beautiful. But as soon as they get to the real world, everything gets a lot raunchier, like immediately. So as Tempest points out, one of the first things that happens after Barbie makes it to the real world is a shot lingering on her ass, and she gets sexually harassed, and at one point, I think, yeah, even assaulted by a guy who smacks her ass. Immediately everything gets dirtier, it gets crasser, but not in like a blue humor kind of way. I think it's meant to be a representation of how in Barbie Land, the Barbies think that they exist in a kind of perfect feminist utopia where women are perfectly empowered. But then, of course, she goes to the real world to find out that the patriarchy is real and it's not great. And actually, people don't listen to women that much. Ken also finds out that the patriarchy is real because Ken comes alongside Barbie, but he likes it because in Barbie Land. Okay. Does anybody know how the drow are in, like, fantasy media? They kind of have that going on. In Barbie Land, the women control and are everything, and the men are superficial side pieces that exist to momentarily entertain Barbies. They play at the beach. I think at one point Barbie even says, like, explicitly, I don't know where they sleep, which kind of implies they just sleep on the beach. Whereas every Barbie gets their own Barbie house, you know? Barbie Land is a land for Barbie, which means that Ken is kind of a superfluous underclass there. And by the way, the nature of this dynamic, attention is paid to it, you know? This isn't like some crazy reading or whatever. Explicitly, when watching the movie, attention is called to the fact that the Kens don't really have anything. Political power, because there's a Barbie Supreme Court, there's a Barbie president, you know, political power, social power, whatever. They basically just exist to get Barbie attention. The main Ken, the one that we follow throughout the movie, the Ryan Gosling Ken, is hardcore down bad for Margot Barbie, and who wouldn't be, right? You know, so when they. You know, he's desperate for attention, but she's clearly not interested in reciprocating it. When they go to the real world, they learn different lessons. Barbie learns that the real world is actually cruel, highly sexualized, and that women don't have much social power at all. They call pretty direct attention to this. The themes of feminism aren't exactly subtle. They explicitly talk about how they're feeling. I thought one of the funniest things to me when they first made it onto the beach, in Venice Beach, because they're going to LA. They go from Barbie Land, they do a little trip, and they end up on Venice Beach, which I've been there, is that everyone is staring at Barbie and Ken because They're wearing ridiculous neon glow outfits. You've seen these in social media. These outfits were seen by people taking photos of them at Venice Beach because they were shooting on set. So you saw these outfits because everyone saw them. This happened a while ago. And they're both dressed like this because it's Barbie. So of course they're dressed like this. But they're like narrating to each other the weird shift in how they're being perceived by others, with Barbie feeling like there's an increasingly violent undertone to the way other people are perceiving her, and Ken loving it because people are actually looking at him, whereas at Barbie Land, nobody looks at Ken unless it's in the specific context of him deliberately trying to entertain them, okay? So after hijinks happen, and I'm not trying to tell the entire plot, there's plenty I'm leaving out, I'm just trying to get at the themes I want to talk about. They do stuff in the real world, and the gist of it is that Barbie, wants to fix some sort of underlying rift that's opened up in Barbie Land. Ken wants to do the patriarchy in Barbie Land. And when Barbie returns after Ken to Barbie Land, Ken has already made the entire place Dude Land. Ken Land. Super duper big dude Ken Land. And funnily enough, and I'm surprised the movie was willing to go there, and I'm really glad they did because it's sociologically interesting. All of the women, all the Barbies, who are they were like Supreme Court ministers, justices, the president, all these empowered Barbies, they're all now happily subservient to the Kens. Basically, they're happy being like set dressing. They're like, oh, well, doing work was hard, and actually I'd much rather just serve beer to this dude bro Alpha, and he'll slap my ass sometimes, you know? And this is like to a woman, all of them. And one character comments that it's like it's like smallpox to the natives, like they had no natural resistance to chauvinism. So as soon as any of it shows up, they're all just like, oh yeah, I guess sure, you'll do all the hard work and I'll chill out and I'll like serve you beers. That sounds so easy, you know? So there's no like expectant, there's no preparation for it. The whole movie ultimately was about the relationship between Barbie and Ken and the ways in which they needed to change as people, which is sort of contradictory because when the movie begins, they're not people. They're Barbie and Ken. They're not like humans. But they take different directions. I want to say, by the way, I'm going to talk about Ken and the Ken dynamic for a while, but I want to be clear that this was the star of the show. Seriously, Margot did such an insanely good job acting throughout this. This was actually the line between schmaltz and like quality cinema right here. Because in addition to being, let's be fair, very attractive, didn't I say Margot? I said Margot. What did I say? Did I say Margaret? In my head, I was thinking, don't say Margaret. So I just said it. Okay, right, Margot. Thank you. I heard Margot. I thought I said Margot. Whatever. Anyway, brilliant job acting from her. Most of the movie is about her coming to terms with her identity, what it means to be a Barbie, what it means to be a human, blah, blah. The ending of the movie is surprisingly emotional considering like the source material that led up to it. Not the very ending. The very ending ends on a joke that I'll tell in a second, but most of the ending is, I think, fairly emotional. And her acting skills, just tremendous. It was done so well. And with Ken, it's mostly about, I guess, an analogization of the roles of men in general. And now I'm going to do the sociology thing, right? Okay. So the movie pays attention to the fact and comments on the fact that the image of the Barbie is a sort of stereotypical, demeaning and unrealistic one, both in the sense that Barbies are just kind of always attractive. That's like a template of the figure. So that's something, right? But also the idea of Barbies being a kind of fantasy world where women have power is undercut by the fact that if you're a little girl playing with one, you then have to end that and go into the real world where you don't. And the film sort of acknowledges the fact that that dichotomy isn't one which really addresses the problem, but rather kind of paints over it, undercuts it, or at times encourages escapism from it, which is what Barbie Land is, The movie's not subtle about the feminist bits. And, we've talked about feminism enough that I think that we can all kind of understand, just based on what I'm talking about here, what lessons the movie wants you to understand about women, right? Women don't have enough power. They should have more. Women are expected to adhere to contradictory and often self-destructive traits that people can claim they want, but then they'll actually complain if you do those things. There's a lot there, but it's also stuff that I've talked about, and I think that you guys can mostly intuit it. Though it is nice to see it spelled out so explicitly in a movie that's already gotten 400 million. I like that. It goes beyond. I would say that it goes beyond just liberal feminist narratives about empowerment, because that's what I was ready for. It goes beyond that, and it talks, instead, I think, about things from a more structural perspective, where it's not just a matter of women need to be empowered. It's also a matter of the idea of womanhood itself being a kind of self-fulfilling trap. And in that way, I would say that the film is shockingly gender abolitionist, considering the fact that Barbie is the most gender toy in existence. Seriously, if you go into it and watch it, or have already watched it, read its contents with a gender abolitionist theme, because I think that there's a strong argument to be made there, which I liked. So again, it goes beyond liberal feminism. It's not just, being a woman is great, or even being a woman is hard, but it should be better. It talks about it more extensively. But it also talks about men, and that's what most people on social media have been talking about, which I think is actually a little bit sexist. I can't believe I'm going to be one of the people saying this, but Ryan Gosling is a great actor. He was not the actor of the film, nor was his story the most emotionally impactful or interesting. It was hers. So, pardon me as I be a cuck soy boy here for a second, but it seems to me like a minor example of the thing, Just the thing. Right? Where women's accomplishments are overlooked in favor of, look, whatever, okay? It's all great. It's all great. I love it all. So, right, Ken. So Ken's a simp, okay? Ken's a simp for Barbie. He goes in the real world, and he learns that in the real world, guys ride horses, own companies, and rape women with reckless abandon. And he goes, well, shucks, wouldn't that be great? He goes on back to Barbie Land, institutes a patriarchy, largely because the Barbies are just kind of passively accepting of more authoritative ideas, which is, by the way, what all of the Kens were beforehand. Keep in mind, in Barbie Land, they're not people. They're abstractions of ideas. They're stereotypes as people. They're not, they don't act exactly as we would. So, right, they are literally objects, but it's not quite. Anyway, he goes back, patriarchy happens, Barbie shows back up, a scheme is orchestrated to de-patriarchify Barbie Land. It succeeds, obviously, but the narrative with Ken specifically, and you've probably seen people talk about this because it's noteworthy, is about what it means to be a man. Because initially, right, the tagline for the movie was, she's everything, he's just Ken. And Ken doesn't have any power socially or politically in the beginning of the movie. And then he gets enraged when he sees that in the real world, men have all the power. He comes back to Barbie Land, he institutes the system, but he's still not happy. He's insecure and desperate for the attention and affection of Barbie, thereby proving that even though Ken has successfully shifted the power structure within Barbie Land, he hasn't changed anything about himself. That is to say, Barbie Land might now be a patriarchy, but he's still a simp for Barbie. He's the exact same thing. All he's gone from is being a powerless simp who defines his existence in relation to her, to being a powerful simp who defines his existence in relationship to her, which isn't really being more powerful in a social sense. It just means that he, again, in the movie, had a sweet fur coat. At the climax of the movie, Barbie succeeds through shenanigans and patriarchy is dismantled. And Ken... It basically just has a flat-out conversation about what it means for him to be him, and that's where you get the Ken is enough, the banger sweater that he was wearing at the end there. Why am I... No, I am Kenuff. Sorry, that's right. I am Kenuff. Why can't I find a picture of him wearing it? There we go. Thank you. Very important. You have to see him wearing it. It's not enough to just see the... There we go. See, I am Kenuff. It's great. Thank you. The whole narrative being that, I guess if you were to directly analogize this to human relationships, that, let's be real here, okay? Guys, folks, pussy, it's pretty great, right? A lot of guys go crazy over this stuff. And when men don't feel they have a lot of social power, and I want to be clear, in a broad social sense, abstracted across all men, men have quite a lot of social power. Individual men don't always, especially if they don't really have any like big economic or political, like if you're just like a guy, and you like girls, but girls don't necessarily like you, you're not feeling powerful in relation. You don't feel the patriarchy necessarily. And the argument of the Barbie movie is that the fantasy of many of these guys, which is to take complete control of society and remodel it in a way that forces women to be subservient to them, doesn't fix anything. In a way, it actually was what a lot of people on Twitter joked about it being, an incel movie. Except, rather than it being about inceldom, it's about what incels want as a perceived solution to their problems. Explicitly, Ken is a simp for Barbie, realizes that under patriarchy he could have far more power over women, and Barbie specifically, implements it through cartoon logic, is not happier, and then is told directly that his fundamental internal world has not changed because he's still defining himself based on his relationship to Barbie. That's why it's I am Kenough, right? Like, Ken is enough without relation to Barbie. And in a way, I don't know. I actually find that to be a more convincing rebuttal for the incel logic than a lot of other movies. Rather than focusing on sort of the trap arguments on the outside, which is like, oh, well, you'd do better with Barbie if you shaped up or if you showered or something. Folks, it's Ryan Gosling. So they skip all of that. The person who's simping for Barbie, the person with an unrequited interest in Barbie, isn't someone who needs to improve himself in any kind of physical or relationship sense, because he's Ryan Gosling. He's fine. He's set. So they skip all those arguments. He's already a Chad. He even says in his song that's already got 1 billion plays on Spotify, in any other world I'd be a 10, which is language he picked up from visiting the real world. So that's not the issue here, right? The issue is, and this is like fundamentally this is like acknowledged right at the very beginning of the movie. It was very, very funny, which was that back when Ken is still simping for Barbie, Barbie has a house party and Ken wants to sleep over, and Barbie asks to do what? And Ken responds, I don't know. Because they're literally sexless dolls. They literally don't have genitalia. So even in the absence of sex as a physical possibility, they're literally sexless. It's not only they don't have genitals, they don't have, like, that's not even a thing with them at all. But still, Ken is longing for some kind of abstracted expression of appreciation and affirmation from Barbie, right? It's very odd, actually, if you think about it. A dreamland for doll people who are sexless in both body and desire, but one of them still has this latent feeling that they want to fuck Barbie. That's odd. I kind of like it, though. In a way, it feels almost representative of, or maybe like an analogization of the kind of friend zone experience, not in actuality, but in perception, where a relationship can be sexless, but a guy who feels discontented by that can still feel like that longing attraction or that sexual interest, even if the context of that engagement is just totally not there. You know, it's like a cartoonification of that underlying logic, which I think is familiar with most people. Everyone's had an unrequited interest at some point in their life. Some people, it was very minor or very severe, but it's a fundamentally relatable experience. And I think the movie does a pretty good job of pointing at exactly what it's trying to point at without spelling it out. It spells out all the feminist stuff, but it doesn't spell out all the incel stuff. And that's interesting to me because it says to me that it's a movie that is available to communicate directly in terms of feminism, but only indirectly in terms of this broader wave of chauvinism, you know? And the fact that it was willing and able to do both, in my opinion, is pretty great. Does this make sense to people who haven't watched the movie? Does this make sense? I know I'm rambling. I know that other YouTubers have like cuts they can cut between, they can edit stuff, and I'm kind of just remembering it and talking about it. But I think those are the two things, right? Or I should say three things, right? There's the feminist narrative that I would consider to be borderline gender abolitionist. There is the narrative about men being, that men should self-actualize and not define themselves by women. Because take a look at the modern red pill incel MGTOW movement. They all define themselves by women. Seriously. Sneeko, Aiden Ross, and Andrew Tate. Non-stop. They define the role of the alpha male is to be successful with women, so they talk non-stop about women. Women rule their lives. These are men so insecure that a public rejection from a woman would spurn from them violence or years of embitterment, Their world revolves around women. And the incel movement, of course, certainly this is the case. They can't stop thinking about women. They talk about them all the time in very negative terms in their forums. So to argue that you are Knuff, well, okay, that's nice. Because the problem with the logic of the incel isn't that they're not able to get laid, right? Because there are lots of people who aren't getting laid right now when they want to. Everyone's not gotten laid when they wanted to. That's just life. Everyone experiences this. The problem is the ideas and attitudes they have towards the fact that they're not getting laid at that particular moment or for any given length of time. It's a logic problem. It's not a immediate mechanical problem. Yeah, okay. That's pretty much what I had to say. Additional pointers. Aesthetically, I think that this movie is probably going to inspire a lot of people, and I would recommend everyone watching me right now who hasn't watched it to go watch it, because it's really good. It's really good. It's not super long. It's not draining. It's well-paced. It's interesting. It's entertaining. I would find it very difficult to imagine a person getting bored watching this, even if it's not necessarily your thing. And from an aesthetic standpoint, still, I think it's just stellar. Just stellar. Also, Margot Robbie killed it. Really taken aback by her acting here, I didn't think she was bad beforehand. I just didn't think, I didn't have any reason to believe that she specifically was a stellar actor. But no, she really sold this. The emotional core, the conflict of the movie is Ken and the patriarchy thing. The emotional core of the movie is her thoughts and feelings about herself. And in a movie that is a promotion of a toy line, to have the emotional core be an introspective one, which are always harder to pull off than an interpersonal one, that's really impressive. Interpersonal emotional drama is easy to hit on because you can do so much there. But introspective drama, personal stuff, reflecting that takes good acting. So I think she did a really good job, and just really good stuff. Oh, and not to mention the director, whose name I'm forgetting. Didn't she do Little Women? Right? Right? Barbie director. She did. Greta Gerwig. Yeah, big congratulations to her. Most successful female director ever. Now? Well, the numbers have to be fully counted up, but she's going to be. I don't think. Yeah, by a pretty significant margin. And Lady Bird as well. Yeah, Lady Bird as well. Really good. Anyway, she's probably going to have a stellar career from now on. The Matrix was made by women. Ah, yes, The Matrix. That's right. Okay. Well, all right. Hold on now. Okay, you wokelets. Transitioning after you've made the movie. All right. Okay. Well, that's like saying a heavyweight lifter broke the record, then they transitioned 6 years later. It's a woman broke the record. Okay. Technically, retrospectively, sure, but let's count it at time of release, Otherwise, 50 years from now, the Wachowski twins are going to be dead, and then it'll be like, well, The Matrix was made by dead directors. No, it wasn't. Shut up. That's not how that works. They transitioned just so they could get the record. They're not twins, just siblings. They're not twins? I thought they were twins. What is this? Does this deserve a look? What is this? The Barbie movie made an indigenous smallpox joke. Response from a Nadli and Dine two-spirit indige queer trans. Nope. Just from this, you don't have to listen to it. Nope. I'm sorry. Nope. Right off the bat, you don't have to. No, you don't have to listen to it. You don't. It's fine. You don't have to. Bait. Even if it's unintentional, it's bait. The only thing the movie said was that patriarchy swept through Barbie land, and then one character's like, it was like smallpox with the natives. They had no natural resistance. Which is true. The plagues that the Europeans brought with them were particularly devastating in the Americas because the natives there did not have any resistance because they had not lived with it. That's factually true. That's not a joke at the expense of indigenous people who died. It's not even a joke. It's just a comparison. It's literally just a demonstration of the concept of natural immunity to a disease, which, yeah. So what? See, they're framing it as though it was a joke. The genocide endured by indigenous and native people should never be a joke. It wasn't a joke. Smallpox and other anti-indigenous, anti-native jokes never funny, never. It wasn't. They're just making up something to be mad over. It's not. Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. What made you think genocide jokes were okay? Yeah, it's not. It's just bait, guys. You do not have to listen to the woke scold. Also, when a person's bio looks like this, you can just ignore them. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. You can just ignore them. It's all right. If a person's entire existence is dedicated to reminding you of the 58 categories of marginalization they belong to, and they use that identity exclusively to shit stir, make stuff up, uncharitably frame stuff happening around them, lie, you don't have to pay attention to it. It's fine. Oh, here's the pin thread here. Why natives won't be watching Oppenheimer and why you shouldn't either. Thank you. An in-depth look at why nuclear trauma and devastation should not be sensationalized or celebrated. Yes. Oppenheimer sure did sensationalize and celebrate the process of developing atomic weapons. That's definitely what it did. You know, after the development of the atomic bomb, Oppenheimer is asked what he wants done with Los Alamos, where they developed it, and he said, return it to the Indians. And the U.S. government was like, eh! So actually, even though the movie didn't have to, it does directly acknowledge the fact that the U.S. government continued to screw over the original inhabitants of that land. You know, that's okay. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. Though you should. Didn't Oppenheimer say this is lit after the training test? He actually said this sure is going to dab on some Japanese, and then he dabbed really hard. Oh, one other thing. There was a trans Barbie. That was cool. Also, I think it was the trans Barbie specifically who said the line about how it's nice to be an object to serve men or whatever. And I thought that was particularly funny because it reminded me of 90% of my Twitter oomphies. Yeah, I see you guys validating your femininity by submitting to every single tenet of traditional masculine-feminine power dynamics. I see you. Looks great, by the way. Oh, I think this would also mean that this would have to be the highest grossing, highest profile movie to have a prominent trans actress, right? Is there another one? There might be, but this feels like it's pretty up there. It's gotta be up there, at least. Yeah, maybe it is the most. Talk about the scene where Barbie dropped the nuke. Yeah, she nuked Venice Beach, and she said, I have become cunt. All right. Are trad wives trans-coded cis women? Yeah, now that being a trad wife is trans culture, conservatives are going to have to pivot to another thing to want women to be, you know? How was Nkuri Gatwa as Ken? He'll be the new Doctor Who. The Asian dude with the square jaw is going to be the next Doctor Who. He did a great job acting. He was Ken's primary rival. No? Oh, okay. Then I still think he did a good job acting. Oh, the black one. Oh, right. Okay. Wait, there were two black ones. One had a goatee. Black guy with the blonde hair. The small one. The Scottish black one. Oh, this guy. Oh, he was good. He didn't have that much time in the movie, so I don't think he ever had an opportunity to be like a standout actor. But he was good. Least racist Vosh moment. The first person I came up with was an Asian man. How was that? Okay. All right. Good review, guys. We did it. We did movies. We did kino. We did cinema. Very good. Very good. Very nice. Very good. Very great.